Pluvialis. Happy holidays. I'm Jack, and this is AlgaTalk's Red and Green Holiday Special. Well, let's get started. Mush, mush. We're going to have a really great show. We are going to be celebrating seaweeds and algae, red and green, macro and micro. And we're going to have some holiday friends to spread some phycological cheer. Our first guest is a tiny guy. He's a poet and he wants to read his favorite poem. He's a little shy, so let's give it away for AlgaElf, all the way from the North Pole's algae-colored ice. AlgaElf, the stage is yours.
'Twas the Night Before Christmas, Phytoplankton Edition. Written by David Aldridge. And narrated by AlgaElf. That's me. Okay, AlgaElf. You can do this. Just take a deep breath. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the photic zone. Few creatures were stirring, most plankton were all alone. The water was mixed, with nutrients galore. Critters hoping come spring, temperatures would soar. The copepods were nestled, all snug in their beds. While visions of algal blooms, danced in their heads. And a dinoflagellate cyst, near to the pap, porcupine abyssal plain, had just settled down, for a long winter's nap. When springtime arrives, there will be such clatter. Algae will wake, and once again matter. The sea will be green, and teeming with life. Phytoplankton will grow, once photosynthesis is rife.
Well, doesn't that just give a warmth to the oceans of your heart? And I hope that everybody's putting out milk and cookies for the big guy. Or as we do at AlgaTalk, we put out sushi and spirulina shakes. And speaking of milk and cookies, algae has made a glorious introduction to the dairy market with a seaweed called Asparagopsis. Let's take a look at this revolutionary method to cut down methane and hopefully save the snow globe we call Earth.
A farmer, while looking for a healthy food alternative for his cattle, resulted in making them more environmentally friendly, making them less gassy and reducing their emissions of methane. And this eventually led to the finding of a seaweed species that could one day bring these emissions to zero. Joe Dorgan, who formed North Atlantic's Organics, discovered this 15 years ago. He sent samples from seaweed on Prince Edward Island in Canada to Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia, to test for organic certification. These seaweeds had been farmed for 5 generations, for use as feed and fertilizer. He found that the high uptake of natural vitamins and minerals caused better reproduction of milk in cows, while also unintentionally finding that it made the cows less gassy. The process of digestion of regular roughage-rich feed results in the cows to burp more. The burps release methane and fill the environment with a greenhouse gas that's 80 times more potent than CO2. Now, Rob Kinley, chief scientist at Future Feed, who had worked with Dorgan for the certification nearly 15 years ago, started to look for a special kind of seaweed species that could further enhance the methane-reducing capabilities. Kinley explained, in a conversation with CBS, quote, "We started testing seaweeds from coastal Australia, and it wasn't long before the Asparagopsis species showed up, and it showed up in a big way. So big that we didn't even believe what we were seeing. It took multiple runs of testing this before we believed what we were seeing, which was we couldn't find methane anymore." Unquote. Now researchers are working on experimenting with farming the seaweed. Josh Goldman from Greener Grazing, who has teamed up with Kinley's team, states that cultivation of seaweed takes about 90 days, which allows for multiple cycles per year. Moreover, via the process of aquaculture, it can be grown almost anywhere, as soon as the climate is suitable. Yet it's not going to be enough to feed 1.5 billion cows across the world. However, Goldman highlights that even if some seaweed is added to a cow's diet, they consume less food, while also allowing carbon credits to dairy farmers and cattle ranchers. Earlier this year, Australian researchers found that this species of red algae could reduce animal methane emissions by 32%, all the way to 98%, depending on the dose, and the type of animal, and the type of diet. Globally, methane is responsible for 30% of global warming. Of that, livestock, such as cattle, account for about 1/3 of all methane emissions. Asparagopsis taxiformis, a red tropical seaweed, has a very high concentration of what is called bromoform. That's the chemically active component, and that bromoform blocks the biochemical pathway that is used in the rumen to form methane. It could be a possibility in the future that a microalgae could be found to have the same chemical components, which could be grown almost anywhere, raising the possibility of production facilities closer to the dairy farms. So, let's raise a glass of milk to this red seaweed, and let's hope this will be another way that algae can help the human race to work with nature to find solutions for our problems we are facing today.
Wow, it's really amazing what algae can do. And speaking about milk and cookies for the big guy, our next guest is the big guy himself, Santa Chlorellaus. Hey there, Santa Chlorellaus. I see you're checking your list. I hope I'm on the good list this year. Okay, Saint Nanachloropsis, you said you wanted to give a message about algae and reindeer? Well, take it away, old jolly Chlorellaus.
Sure thing, my friend. Well, in the snows of Finland, where I have my summer home, it's where I raise my reindeer. And there is a spectacular fact about algae and reindeer. When reindeer are really hungry, they eat lichens called reindeer cup lichens or Cladonia rangiferina. A lichen is a composite organism that arises from algae or cyanobacteria, living among filaments of multiple fungi species, in a mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship. The fungi benefit from the carbohydrates and sugars produced by the algae or cyanobacteria, via photosynthesis. The algae or cyanobacteria benefit by being protected from the environment by the filaments of the fungi, which also gather moisture and nutrients from the environment, and, usually, provide an anchor to it. Either way, this makes a great treat for our reindeer in wintertime, when it is hard to find food for them. Sadly, it is getting harder and harder for our furry friends to find these lichens. We here at the North Pole know all about climate change and its effects on our ecosystem. And the ecosystem of the reindeer is no different. Because of high temperatures in the Arctic Circle, the snow melts as it is coming down. Sometimes, it just rains. And this water becomes an icy layer on top of the ground, preventing the reindeer from digging and grazing these beautiful lichens. The reindeer and I count on this symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi every winter. But now the reindeer are starving. We have already lost thousands to the lack of access to these lichens. This mass starvation is causing the reindeer to migrate to new areas to find food. It is getting tougher every year for my elves and I to herd our reindeer back home for Christmas. Herding reindeer from as far as 100 kilometers to the south, that's how far they went in search of ice-free lichen they can access under the snow. So, please, Santa Chlorellaus is asking everyone to contact their government representative and ask them to save my precious reindeer. Do it for Santa. Please save my reindeer.
Wow, a sobering message from Santa. Who knew reindeer were so important to delivering all those gifts? We need to take heed of Santa's message and save the reindeer. And now, we have a poem from Santa Claus's better half, Mrs. Chlorellaus.
O crispus tree, O chondrus crispus tree, how lovely are thy seaweed. O crispus tree, O chondrus crispus tree, how lovely are thy seaweed. Your boughs so red in summertime, stay bravely red in wintertime. O irised moosebaum, O chondrus crispus tree, how lovely are thy seaweed.
That was a great poem about the red seaweed Chondrus crispus. Did you know that Chondrus crispus is an industrial source of carrageenan, and it's used as a thickener in milk products such as ice cream and processed foods. Also, it's used in the brewing of beer. So when it comes to the celebrations of these holidays, you have this red seaweed, Chondrus crispus, to thank. So let's raise whatever you're using for celebration, and let's raise it to this seaweed. Speaking of algae, I recently went to a Christmas market and saw this ornament. And originally I thought, why are they selling ornaments about diatoms? Of course I knew what it was, but it got me thinking about how diatoms have a very sort of like a snowflake, a very symmetrical and beautiful sort of designs to it that happen within nature. So why don't we take a look at why diatoms get the shape that they have?
Diatoms are phytoplankton that exist in most liquid environments across the planet, composing a vital part of the world's ecosystem, by being responsible for 1/5 of all the photosynthesis carried out. Diatoms belong to the eukaryota domain and compose a major group of algae. Besides the diatom's ecological importance, they have a distinct and unique, morphological characteristics, in the form of a silica cell wall. So diatoms are kind of in a glass house. There are two main classes of diatoms that are distinguished by their rib structure, centric diatoms, and pinnate diatoms. Centric diatoms have ribs radiating from a ring, while pinnate diatoms have ribs extending from a longitudinal element. Besides the structures of the ribs, centric diatoms are in no way uniform across centric diatoms. On the surface of valves there are many pores. These are often referred to as areli and can form intricate patterns. There can be structures called oculi, areas where areli are smaller and surrounded by a discrete rim of silica. Additionally, there can also be various elevations on the valve, and even structures like horns. The shape of a diatom forms during oxyspore development. The oxyphore is the form of the diatom during sexual reproduction, where the cell is roughly spherical, and lacks a silica cell wall. During this development, a complex arrangement of silica bands and hoops form on the oxyspore. This limits its expansion and causes the distinctive shape of many diatoms. The precise workings of this process are however largely unknown, making it difficult to model.
Just like algae comes in different shapes and sizes and species, holidays are just the same way. So if anybody's celebrating, I want to wish them a happy Diwali, a happy Hanukkah, a happy Kwanzaa, and an Eid Mubarak. Since these holidays share the same symbol of light, let's take a look at a recent algae news about algae and biofuel.
This past November 10, 2021, Honeywell announced its UOP eco-finning technology that supported the world's first jet flights using sustainable aviation fuel, produced from algal oil. 2 commercial flights, recently completed in Japan, used a renewable jet fuel created from microalgae feedstock using the eco-finning process. The commercial flights were the first use of the new ASTM D7566NX7 standard for jet fuel. The flights were carried out by Japan Airlines, on an Airbus A350-900, and All Nippon Airways on a Boeing 787-8. Aviation fuel is the fastest growing fuel segment, with global demand expected to increase from 106 billion gallons in 2019 to 230 billion gallons in 2050. The microalgae oil feed was produced by the Japanese-based IHI Corporation. They approached Honeywell with the novel algal oil for the production of renewable jet fuel through the use of Honeywell eco-fining. This is the first technology used for the commercial production of sustainable aviation fuel. As a drop-in fuel, it can be used in the operation of commercial aircraft around the world, as well as in Japan. This Honeywell green jet fuel is blended seamlessly with petroleum-based jet fuel at commercial scale. Expanding the feedstock base into algal-based fuels is an important step in producing sustainable aviation fuel, said Ben Owens, Vice President and General Manager, Honeywell Sustainable Technology Solutions. The UOP eco-finning process has proven to be suitable for many types of renewable feeds, including algal oil. We look forward to working with IHI on expanding algal fuels to the entire industry. The IHI biofuel is extracted from the microalgae Botrychococcus brownii. This alga, Botrychococcus brownii, has great potential for aquaculture because of the hydrocarbons it produces, which can be chemically converted into fuels. Up to 86% of the dry weight of Botrychococcus brownii can be long-chain hydrocarbons. Algal fuels have very high yields and can be grown almost anywhere temperatures are warm enough. Algae can even be grown in wastewater, so they can provide additional advantages by helping to process waste, while also avoiding taking up additional land. In their cultivation and harvest, algae could also potentially utilize carbon dioxide waste. Although algae can be grown in open water, in order to optimize yield and control, research into third-generation biofuels has at least partly focused on closed systems such as photobioreactors.
Well, it looks like algae might light our way to a more balanced relationship with our spaceship Earth. And talking about ecosystems, let's take a look at something that you could add to your aquarium.
For this holiday season, do we have a gift for you? This pretty calcareous alga resembles a pine cone, and its root-like structure is a large bulb with rhizoids that secure it to the substrate. Its scientific name is Rhipocephalus phoenix, also known as the Christmas tree algae. And don't worry about your fish and invertebrates won't eat it, they don't like the pinecone alga's taste. It's short, about 6 inch or 15 centimeters, has high growths, form clusters, and requires bright light, gentle currents, and slightly above natural calcium and alkalinity levels to keep it looking its best. So this holiday season, bring some festivity to your aquarium with the pinecone algae, and have your fish saying Merry Christmas again.
And if you're looking for more gift ideas, AlgaTalk has merch. We recently created a Teespring page to provide our audience with some algae-based designs from AlgaTalk. Please take a look and give us feedback by emailing us at algatalkpodcast@gmail.com or contacting us on any of our other social media platforms. This is our first try at creating merchandise, so any feedback would be greatly appreciated. I hope this coming year of 2022 will bring much success to everyone, and of course, algae. I'm very excited to see the new technologies that will arise out of the algae market. Next year, where we'll do our next episode, we'll review 2021 and the algae market and how it stood. Until next year, if you keep listening, we'll keep Alga talking.